have a different set of results. That should not be there. So what you consider as an objective, and you should have a corresponding result for that. Okay. So all information, important information, highlight all information. It may be duplication. Sometimes when you are writing a result and discussion, it may be duplication. And even in the conclusion also there may be duplication. But this abstract is a standalone thing. You put everything in it. It is a brief account of paper's relevant point. It is a summary of the work. It must stand alone without references to the text body. There should not be any citation should be there in the abstract. Sometimes you can also use, you can cite the paper. Okay. Quoting technology. So now in the quoting technologies that harness artificially we by name Stan Bibrick, who developed where they have also reported super hard quoting. When they report the super hard quoting, they cite this work. His hardness value is this, and I develop. So in the abstract, you can say, okay, if it is a comparative evaluation, you can also cite some other work in the abstract. Otherwise, no. Should include some information on the result obtained, major information about the novel conclusion. Length and formats are usually specified for a particular journal. Now it is 200 word or 400 word. Now come to the introduction chapter, introduction section. Should be very, very interesting because after reading the abstract, people start reading the information like introduction. How the introduction should be written. We should start with the broader spectrum. Suddenly, no, I cannot attempt. I'm going to start developing super hard quoting, something like that. What is basically quoting? What is super hard quoting? And a proper literature review also should be presented in the introduction. Okay, in the thesis, now we have one chapter is called introduction, another chapter is called literature review. But in the paper writing, we have introduction. Under the introduction, we should present a literature survey. Therefore, here we are going to define the problem and motivation for your research. Then research cap. Identification of the research cap should come from what? Literature review. The literature review is very, very important. If you are strong in the literature review, I would say that you are a knowledgeable person. The way you have written the paper, the literature review in the introduction section will the editor will or this the reviewer will can be able to judge by looking at the literature review portion what capable you are. Supposing if you are coherently writing this literature review, and we can able to say that no, you have a good knowledge in that domain. So this review of relevant literature. It is review of relevant literature. What is review? What is review? It is a critical analysis. Literature, already presented document, already presented work, already published work, maybe in the form of, I've seen somewhere. Yes, you. Known face. Okay, now I understand. Okay. I recognized his face, so I have met him somewhere. Okay. Where I have literature, it is a known published document in the repository. It is in the form of a journal paper, or it may be a patent, or it may be a technical report. You have to review it. What is the meaning of review? It is understanding and putting your ideas in it. So literature review is very, very important. Then objectives. See, there is a correlation between this research cap and literature review. The research cap should be built from the literature review. Okay, so you are going to discuss the introduction in the broader spectrum, and then you are going to discuss the literature review. You take a particular domain, probably a coating. You are going to develop a super hot coating, or probably for electronics, like I say, sensor, a pressure sensor. It may be understood by everyone. Pressure sensor. You need material for pressure sensor. Okay, that material can be manufactured by different methods, and it can be fabricated by different method. So you may be attempting a one method, and in that method you have so many process variable to prepare this material for a pressure sensor. Okay, and when you say this is my method, I have so many variables. There may be some report about these so many variables individually studied. So individual contribution of this process variable, I can be able to recognize from previous paper, and I can coherently connect with this. And what you are going to focus on further, that is a research cap. So this is all the variable people studied and reported. And finally, there is a vacuum here. That is also one parameter which is very, very important. I am going to attempt that. So that means there is a connectivity between your literature data and review and the research cap. Finally, this research cap will be converted into objectives. And few lines now you have to write an objective. So when you write an objective, and you have to also build something that is called constraint, because all our research works are within some constraint, that is limitation. What is the limitation of your research work? So you have to write a significance of your study, limitation of your study, and also simple terminology, you can say how the flow of information is presented, that is the paper organization. And also, if you build a mathematical model, and if you have introduced so many variables in it, you should also define these variables in important terms, especially for a mathematical paper or mathematics or numerical methods involved research work. You may use several parameters, theta, eta, gamma, delta. What these variables are representing, that also should be presented in the introduction. Okay, so the introduction, it is not something what is known to the reader should be presented. The information known to the reader may be one paragraph. General aspects about the process or something, but what should be more would be a review of literature, and finally the research cap, and also the objective. That should be there. So writing this introduction, it's very, very important. And also the common mistake people make here is, how many of you are a regular reader of paper, journal paper? Okay, how many papers you do reading every day? 5, 10, maybe 5. For a beginner, you need 5 days to read one paper, because understanding the technical paper is so complicated. So you need 5 days to write. When I began my career, I used to spend 5 days in reading one paper. Now even in 30 minutes, I can complete one paper. So because reviews are coming, I can finish my review within 1 hour or 2 hours. That's all. And if I critically evaluate, I will probably keep 2 days. Because always know the mentality of the reviewer is to find flaw with the research. Okay. The basic intention of every reviewer is to reject the paper. That is a mindset by which we take the paper. But when we set the mindset that we should find the mistake, if your paper is so nicely written, there it comes that it will be accepted. Okay, so present the comprehensive development of the problem background. That is a literature review. It indicates what has already been studied by others. The literature, you can put. Okay, so the literature review is also helping in many ways. Supposing you are reading literature, okay, in a domain. Say, for example, a sensor, you are very strong in sensor, and you had so many papers, you have already read, maybe 200 paper, 300 paper. All these informations will be present in your brain. When on your paper. So to build the argument on your paper, you need literature support. You need knowledge. You need literature support. The knowledge will be gained from the literature. Okay. And also, when you are reading many literature, you know, for attempting one problem, what are the different way experimented by other authors. Okay. So for producing one material, you may have a several processing technique. And what is the positive and limitation of each processing technique? And what is the result of each processing technique on the same material? I can able to judge. And what is the best method to process the material? I can able to judge. So that means if I have, so for every researcher, what is very important is reading the literature. Even majority of the people, they say that no, I have submitted project proposal several times, but it was rejected. Okay, but I would say if your literature review is strong, then you can be able to tap the funding, because that is the strength of the researcher. Literature review, literature data is the strength of the researcher. That will clearly give you a guidance in coining your objective and also build a discussion. So literature supports your hypothesis, extend the previous works, avoid previous mistakes. While reading the paper, you can also recognize what kind of a mistake people done and what is the different kind of a technique they have employed, different technique. Maybe someone may be using another technique, someone neural network, someone different technique, which is best that you can able to say. Is unique to previously followed path. So when you are defining your goal subjective, it would be something different from others' work. And how your literature review should be written. Okay. Look at this. It's like a cone. Here, this is a known field, broader spectrum, known field. Everyone will have some understanding on this broader surface knowledge, which we call surface knowledge. So surface knowledge is known to everyone. So for example, this is a reader knows. When you build your literature review, you are going to test the domain where the reader doesn't know. That means you start with the known information and present unknown information by doing the analysis. A case study, okay? For example, this is my field, so therefore I will say composites. Okay, composite is a big broader spectrum. I would say what is composite, where it is used. Then you can say in the composite, there are polymer matrix composite, metal matrix composite, ceramic matrix composite. If my field of interest is only polymer matrix composite, I will touch upon what is polymer matrix composite. Then in the polymer matrix composite, there are many interesting fields for research. So I will touch upon my interesting field of research, that is a mechanism of deformation. As a mechanical engineer, when a material is used in a different application, how it is deforming, I can be able to see. And I have to have a deformation resistance, therefore improving the deformation resistance property. And finally, and one important property is interfacial bonding. I will touch upon interfacial bonding. Okay, so how I built argument. I started with the polymer matrix composite and mechanism of deformation. And one of the aspect of mechanism of deformation is strong interfacial bonding. So I will coherently arrange the information like this. So this is a way one has to write the literature review. Okay, and for your information, okay, the source is hidden here. Okay, look at this literature. This author et al. Written something. This author et al. Written something. This you can find in our applications, especially in Indian author publication. A et al. This. B et al. Presented this. C et al. Done this. This is not the way of writing the literature review. Look at this here. All these references are integrated with the flow of information. For example, the quoting process is also highly expensive and laboratory scale. These two authors have followed some appropriate technique to incorporate CNT. And then in the flow of information, I have included the reference. You cannot find a single author name here. That means I have collected information whatever the information available in the paper, and in my own way, I have presented wherever suitable this thing informations are taken from that particular paper, I have cited here. I have cited here. This is the way you have to write. If you write like this, it is very, very boredom. It is very, very boring to read. It is not a good way of presenting the literature survey. You have to integrate the information. Integrate the information. It's something like a storytelling. I start with this PMC, and so many people worked here, and this is governed by this factors. When I write about the factor, this factor will have a major impact on this, and someone has studied it. So like that, no, you have to build. So basically, in one chapter, we cannot understand how literature review can be written. You have to read many papers. That is a good paper. Good technical paper, if you write, automatically your brain will be automatically tuned. Okay, it is something like a neural network. Our brain is also a neural network. When you read many papers, automatically the information goes there. Oh, this is a way now you can write. So that kind of a skill you can be able to acquire over the period of time. And while you do literature survey, there is a chance of plagiarism, because people take Prabhu et al. Done this, and then some abstract they can cut and paste. That should not be there. So reference immediately after mentioning. So some of the things are permitted in the plagiarism, that if it is a rule, if it is a formula, if it is a philosophy, you can be able to take a statement and present it there. But the original source, no, you have to cite. Without citing the original source, if you mention any formula, any rule, any philosophy, that would be considered as a plagiarism. So immediately after placing the content, you have to cite the paper. Always identify the proper source. There is something called cross-referencing. Have you come across cross-referencing? I, as a sole author, beginning author, I might have done something. And for example, a simple thing is CNT, carbon nanotube, because the carbon nanotube is now common to all the field, even in electronics, electrical, chemistry, physics, carbon nanotube. Who invented this carbon nanotube? Lijima, a Japanese professor, Lijima. Correct? Lijima. Lijima has made this carbon nanotube artificially in the laboratory by arc evaporation technique. But if someone has produced the CNT by arc evaporation technique, and you are going to mention that the CNT is first produced by arc vaporization technique, putting the second author name, it is not correct. You have to cite the original source. That is a Lijima paper. Okay, Lijima paper. So that is the always identify proper source. Okay, always identify proper source. Summarize useful points in the literature review. And again, coming to the literature, after literature, you have experimental method or hardware software used, methods used, that is in between your introduction and the resultant discussion. Anything you can call it is a materials and method, experimental work, or methodology used, software used, or any algorithm used. Okay, the method and procedure that you are going to use must be presented. And tool of research or source of data collection has to be also presented. Techniques of data collection should be presented, and description of technique use. What is this? See, you might have using some equipment for experiment. So you have to mention that the equipment is your data collection source. So what is the make model of that equipment? Okay. After making this material, you may be using several characterization tools. XRD, SEM, microstructure, FTIR, DSC. These are all techniques for data collection. So when you are mentioning this techniques of data collection, the make model must be mentioned there. But many often in the local journal, we have seen that the equipment photograph is also presented. In a proper literature testing or proper research report, you should not present the equipment detail, equipment photograph. Only equipment detail must be presented. If you build a equipment, if you build a methodology, forming different equipment in a loop, then you can probably present. Say I modify the IC engine and connect to so many peripherals, then probably a photograph or probably illustration can be presented. But if you have conducted something on the IC engine, what is the point in taking a photograph of IC engine and present in the paper? It is not advisable. So technique of data collection, where what is the equipment you have used, that must be presented. So the method, population, sample studies, and tool and technique must be presented in the research methodology. Then can be divided into several subsections also. Like in my paper, okay, the wear is one study, thermal stability is another study, how the wear is conducted, thermal stability is conducted, the description, the equipment used, how data is collected, and what is the condition under which these experiments were done. All this information must be presented. So can be divided into several subsections. Provide a general description of a technique or method you propose. Okay, where if you propose some method, you can create some block diagram or something. Okay. And your own formulation, algorithm, strategy must be also there. This is especially for computer science people, electrical, electronics people. They come out with some diagram or circuits that you can present as the diagram format. And if you are using hardware and software, that can be also mentioned. The flow chart, the block diagram, computer specification, program languages, okay, and block diagram, sensor limitations, okay, and the photo of hardware. These are all for electrical, computer science, and electronics people, okay. And application of technique. Provide right upon how the simulation is carried out, assumption, how important parameters are chosen and selection. Supposing if you do kind of a simulation, especially mathematical simulation or FEA simulation, where how this simulation is done, where you need to set the parameter, then it is called boundary condition. All this should be mentioned there. Only discuss experiments which are relevant to show the effectiveness or superiority of the proposed technique. Don't discuss anything unnecessarily. What is the technique which is suitable for your experimental study? That alone you can mention here. And come to result and discussion. This is also very, very important. Okay. And nowadays in the paper, we only see results, not discussion. Results and discussion. How result and discussion should be built. This is also a kind of a skill. This skill you can acquire over the period of time, and for this you need to have a strong what called literature survey in your brain. Without information, how you can build argument? When you say result and discussion, it is building argument. Argument, counter argument. You can sometimes find the interesting paper in the domain. In my domain, even I would say one author publishes a paper in the initial that I have made a quoting of 45 GPA. Okay, in fact, even in the industry, we dealt with only MBA harness, but it's a GPA, gigapascal harness. Then immediately the next man who is doing the same kind of a coating work, he will argue how a nano harness, how a nano film, a nano coating can generate a super harness on the coating. He will raise the question. He will raise stating it is not only raising the question, also he will make a point. Only grain size reduction to the nanometer doesn't make any improvement. Okay, then next paper he will publish to substantiate this argument that no, I produced some Frankel defect, I produced some interfaces with some what is called amorphous nano precipitates. It's a kind of a composite coating. So if you look at these papers, there would be argument and counter argument. That's how the papers are written. It is always it is called a technical fight. It's a technical fight. When you take these kind of a similar paper, and there will be a fight between the authors. Technically, it's very quite interesting to read because that will give so much of information. Again, finally, I find that your reading is something extraordinary. It is unbelievable reading because nano harness will not give a correct answer. Because how many of you know nano harness, nano indentation, physics or chemistry? There are 10 number of problems in the nano indentation device. You will quote all this problem, how you have eradicated. Then again, we will present the paper that this is how I have taken reading. So reading this kind of a paper will give you a good knowledge. Also, it is very interesting. It's something like a reading the suspense thriller novel, because always fighting between two very eminent personality in a technical terms. It is very joyful to read. One such paper I used to read mostly Stan Wiperick and Musil. These are the two people, Stan Wiperick and Musil. Two German always counter argue on quoting. It is very interesting to read. If you are working on quoting, probably you read this author's papers. Start from the year 2004. They used to fight on the papers technically. Okay, and when you are writing the resultant discussion, results you have to present in the form of a figure or table, any one format. Some people present the figures, graph, and the same data is presented in the form of a table, only one form. Then interpret finding. It is something resultant discussion. I look at the data, first present the data in a suitable form, whether it is a graphical form or tabular form or pie chart, that depends on your data. You can present the method of presenting. Once I present the data, I look at the data. What is the trend? I look at the auditorium. I say there is a gap between these two general professors. That is my observation. Okay, you look at the data, observe what is there. That's a fact. Okay, it is presenting and reading the data. That's all. So when you are present something in the data format, graphical format or something, whether it is increasing or decreasing or there is a changeover, these are all the information I can be able to see. It is seen and you are going to get some information. That's all. No other thing, no interpretation. So the first thing is presenting the data in a proper format and observation. What is the trend that is present? Observation. Once that is done, then interpretation starts forming. How interpretation you can build? You need further knowledge, literature review. That helps. Therefore, interpret the finding. It is about discussion. There, the mechanisms, why reasoning, everything should be built based on your previous knowledge from the literature. And compare with the literature. That is also very, very important. You have to compare how the present method deviated from the literature. Now, even in the PhD presentation also, increasing, decreasing. Why increasing, why decreasing? There is no discussion about that. Okay, so you have to have a facts, figures and facts. Then avoid repetition. The same point again and again. See, in one segment you may be stating some reason. Again, in another segment also you will be stating the same reason again and again. It will be very, very bored to read all these papers. Therefore, when you state reasoning, it should be one time. That's all. Usually, comparison with the existing technique are required to show the effectiveness of proposed technique. You can also compare different technique in the resultant discussion. Then provide merit discussion, correct analysis of your experimental result. Always provide answers to why the experiment went such way. If it is increasing, why it is increasing? Decreasing, why it is decreasing? If there is any changeover, why it is changing over? All this information. What conclusion can be drawn from your experiment? Finally, and also in engineering and science research, all our discussion should be evidence-based discussion. Without evidence, if you are writing some facts that this may be the reason for this, it may be the reason for someone's paper. Someone may be identifying there is a reason from the facts and figures. They may be reporting that this is the reason for that. The same facts and figure or facts may not be a suitable facts for your condition. Your experimental variable may be different. But if you are quoting that this is a reason, and in citation that paper quoted that is a reason, that may not be valid for your work. Therefore, the presenting conclusion is very, very important. Okay. So this is resultant discussion. So when you are presenting the figure legends, it's very, very important that don't clutter the illustration. Sometimes if you look at the images, there would be so many information will be presented and nothing can be visible. So that kind of a thing should be avoided. Define simple abbreviation in legends. And label axis. Sometimes what is x-axis, what is y-axis, it is not presented. Use same unit as in text. In one unit, they may be using kg, another unit, they may be using Newton. Same unit. Photo authenticity. If you are taking some photograph for discussion, you should cite. You should cite. Say, for example, you may be publishing some paper as an author. You may be publishing some exact result in some paper. And in another paper, you may be taking that copy of that XRD and putting it here. It may be a same paper, same author, but it is a copied. It is a copied. So you have to cite. Even though it is your own data, you have already presented in some other paper, and you are copying it for the second paper, you should cite the first author, that are the journal. Okay, so therefore photo authenticity should be there. Obtain permission for use of previously published material. There is a center called Copyright Clearance Center. Do you know, even in the first page of our online version of the journal, after author, and there is a Copyright Clearance Center. If you are taking any photograph or images or graphs, the Copyright Clearance Center will allow you to use at the free of cost 2 images, free of cost. If it is more than 2 images, then $100 per image. I do not know, that varies depending on the journal. Okay, and without getting permission from the copyright clearance, that is an agency for clearing this copyright. And there is something called open access. There it comes under open version, so you can use, and probably you can put the common CCY something. The code is there that you can put. But if it is a subscription type of a journal, you would get the clearance from the Copyright Clearance Center. Without getting the copyright, if you publish something, maybe some other legal action, maybe, because so far, because academicians are free to use. If you are using this for business purpose, and if you use this, and if you make a publication, book publication and make money, then it will be subjected to legal action. So the discussion section should be briefly, I have put major points here. What are the major pattern in the observation? Linear, the increasing, decreasing, what are the relationship between the trends? Then what are the exception to this pattern generalization? What are the likely causes, mechanism that you have to discuss? That is a discussion. Is there agreement or disagreement with the previous work? Okay. So all this point you should keep in mind when you are writing the resultant discussion. There is a presentation of data, then reasoning for the data, then comparing this data with the previous literature. All this should be there. Then interpret result in terms of background laid on in the introduction. What is the relationship of the present result to the original question that you have raised? What is the implication of present result for the unanswered question? Then if you have a multiple hypothesis, that also should be very clearly stated, and then include the evidence or line of reasoning supporting each interpretation. What is the significance of present result? Why should we care? So these are all the kind of key points one has to keep in mind before writing your paper, result and discussion. Conclusion, key outcome. Again, don't generalize the conclusion. More information should be avoided in the conclusion. It should be specific to your research work. When you do research work, you may have some finding, which are novel finding, which are something not available in the literature. So that alone should be presented. When you say a generalized statement that on increasing this parameter, this output is increasing, there is a general trend. What is the percentage of improvement? Why it is increasing? That kind of a specific information should be presented. Key outcome, then contribution to the scientific domain and limitations and future work. This must be presented. And conclusion, highlight major advantage of your technique, method, and re-emphasize by writing down the novelty of your research work. And also, you may also write down the limitations of your research work in the conclusion so that a negative comment cannot appear. Okay, otherwise the reviewer will write a negative comment. Then write suggestions to improve the problem or limitations of the proposed technique. Maybe 1 or 2 lines you can also write the future scope of the work. Okay, so highlight the major advantage, re-emphasize the novelty. So whatever I have presented is there. So, and finally the acknowledgement. You should acknowledge the grant providing agency and whoever supported. Probably you may be using some facility outside your campus, so that has to be also acknowledged, funding agency and helpful to the investigator. And you should be written in bold letter. And finally, the referencing and plagiarism, that is also very important. Nowadays, for every journal, you have a reference type. Correct. There is something called American Psychological Association referencing style or IEEE format. And avoid self-plagiarism. Self-plagiarism. What is the meaning of self-plagiarism? I have particular set of data, one set of data. I will use the same set of data to publish this paper in journal A, journal B, journal C by changing my title of my to paper. Okay, this is called self-plagiarism. Correct? I can also say when number of others. Okay, I don't want because it will back. Effectiveness of process parameter on metal cutting. Okay, data is same, but the presentation of this thing in a different journal, that is a self-plagiarism. And proper avoid similarity check. Okay, that's a one problem with the and I told that no, you should have more information, more what is called a literature backed up in your mind. That itself a problem. Because when you read more paper, automatically when you start correcting your paper, the line will fall automatically. And but when you do plagiarism check, this will show this is the original source of some paper. They have already stored everything in the brain. So overreading is also very, very dangerous sometimes. That I have experienced. Because our style of writing, we will correct the paper, and but when you put it in the software, this will detect this is a source. We might have not copied that from the source, but reading habits, reading so many articles will make the flow of information like that. So that is also very, sometimes it is very, very difficult. So you have keep change the words. Okay, similarity check. Format of the paper, so you have to stick on to the format of the journal that you are intended to submit. Reference also you have to. Strategies in writing good technical paper. Identify the novelty of your research work. This is very, very important. Novelty of your research work. Okay. Without novelty, doing the work is something waste because the paper won't be accepted. Then list out strength and weakness of your proposed technique. Okay. And provide a good analysis on the research result, language and illustrations. Then common pitfall in technical writing, poor structure sometimes, ambiguous statements. Sometimes, whatever we are writing, we are not clear about that. So ambiguity should be avoided. Grammar and spelling error, and overuse of passive voice. It should be written in active voice. You can also use passive voice, but very minimum. And tips for clear scientific writing, short sentences, so many, even sometimes one paragraph without any stopping, this will go. So you have to break the sentences into a simple sentence, so many sentences. Avoid vague argument and vague words, maintain logical flow. There should be a connectivity between the flow of information. And submission, always know there will be two review. It may be a blind review or non-blind review, depends on the journal. Cover letter is very, very important. In the cover letter, you have to state that what is the novelty of your work. It is not simply writing that so and so submit the paper titled this to this journal, not like that. You have to write a paragraph that what is the novelty of the work and how your paper will impact the field. So that kind of one paragraph should be there in the cover letter. Okay, hereafter if you are going to submit, it should be there. So moment the editor look at the cover letter and see that, oh, compared to the previous literature, I have improved this much amount of efficiency in the process or product or in the material, then probably this will clear the first stage and it will go to the review process. Otherwise, in the first stage itself, it will be rejected. Then responding to the reviewer comment. Always know reviewer will give both positive appreciation and also kind of a criticism. Both you have to take it very seriously. When the reviewer appreciate, you must thank. When the reviewer criticize, you should acknowledge. Thanks for the pointing the mistakes. So you should accept your mistake. Sometimes no, our ego will touch. No. Mine, something like that. If you argue, then in the second review, the paper will be rejected. Okay, so you have to appreciate the negative comment also, and you have to suitably reply the comment. And revision strategy that for each and every point you must give attention, and for each and every comment you should write the reply. Don't think that the reviewer will just miss the reply. So for each and every questions, you have to write the reply. So that is a revision strategy. Authorship, ethics. Now, handshaking with someone, immediately he will say, no, give me authorship in the paper. Correct? Handshaking someone in the conference, give me authorship in the paper, gift authorship. Don't give gift authorship. Or don't create any WhatsApp group for authorship and citations. Correct? Your paper, your work, maybe your student and as a supervisor, only both should be there. Giving unnecessary authorship will pull down your credentials in the academic domain, in the research domain. Authorship is a very, very serious business. It is a business now. Correct? It's also a business now. Therefore, this is one of the ethical issues. Data fabrication and falsification. I know one gentleman has taken one photograph from my laboratory one time. He has reproduced that photograph several times. That means you can understand whether it is really done or not. It is reproducing. Data generation factory, that should not be there. Even if that data is something, sometimes you will have something, a deviation in the data, you present, nothing wrong in it. Don't manipulate the data. Then concurrent submission. I submit the same paper in a 2/4 journal. That's why should be also avoided. Conflict of interest. Okay, you may be working with me, taking all the data, going away and publishing the paper without my knowledge, not giving due credit to me also. That is also a conflict of interest. One case I can able to say. One PG student completed a ME work, and she has given this PG thesis to someone who is also a professor, who is a relative of this girl. She has published the paper, but this supervisor, when he is doing the literature review, suddenly one paper come and then exactly the data setup and everything is similar to what he has guided. When he look at the thesis and this paper, it is exactly match. I was in a inquiry committee, so I understand. Okay, what is this called? Conflict of interest. Okay, and summary and takeaway, writing is an iterative process. One time if you write and then submit the paper, it's not also like that. You have to iterate. That means once you write a paper, you have to iterate several times. I used to correct my PhD scholar paper minimum 15 times. 15 times. Only one scholar I have corrected 2 times. Because the scholar is so very good scholar, I have corrected only 2 times. Other scholars, 15 times minimum. At the end of the 15 time, all the words are my words, not his words. So it's my words. Okay, so that means it is an iterative process. And then I will decide. Let the reviewer decides. Yes, because I would not be satisfied with 15 corrections also. So it keep on goes, and finally, one point of a time, I will be tired. I used to say that let you present, submit, let the reviewer says, then we will take up it up. So iterative, review, revise, refine. Clarity is key to impact. So you should ensure that you are first of all clear about your paper. Okay, that's a key takeaway from this. Look at this, you are going to submit a paper. There are some mans with something. They are the reviewers. They are the reviewers. Once you beat them, then it will be accepted. Before they beat you, you have to beat them. Okay, thank you. So do you have any question, Professor? Yeah. That's nowadays no. The graphical abstract, you should be able to present the abstract in the graphical form also. That's also very interesting. So I missed. Okay, thank you. I missed. So I will update my presentation then. Anything?
Sir, good afternoon. Sir, in the results and discussion area, how many reference we have had for particular test? If you say about for microstructure analysis, you say about VR and Pernam, how many references? It's about 3 or 4 is enough, sir?
No. So minimum, you should present 15 to 30 references accepted. If it is more than that, it depends also again, depends on the length of the paper. Sometimes you write 4 pages, for that 40 references are not necessary. Sometimes you will write 40 pages, and also referencing is not mandatory. Sometimes, 40 not mandatory. It depends on the situation. If you build argument with many factors and governing principle mechanism that and all supported by some journal, then all this must be cited. Okay, if all these things are cited, can be cited from 4 journals, that's itself okay. Okay, it need not be 40 or 15. It depends on the context of the paper.
Okay.
Recent last 5 years and last 10 years, not the previous 1947. Yeah, that's also okay, but some of the basic things, something like for when you are quoting CND, you must have you cannot miss Lijima. Lijima has produced the CND in 1998 or 1999. That should be mentioned. Okay.
Sir, for example, in the Springfield journal, sir, in particular journal, they ask about you have done certain characteristics, but why not you done the EBSD analysis, somewhat the sophisticated, advanced technology. So whenever I am completed the test only, the paper is accepted. So sometimes they are not accepted.
See, for certain work, some characterizations are mandatory. I think this is for grain refinement.
Yeah.
Grain refinement cannot be studied by only SEM or TAM. You need EBST result. That is mandatory. So your research work mandate that characterization too. Without that, you cannot build argument on that. Low angle grain boundary, high angle grain boundary, the misorientation details, the grain size details, everything you cannot build only with the SEM and TAM. You need EBST. So it is mandated by your research. Okay. Without that, you cannot build argument.
Thank you, sir. Sir, can you cite the references and the methodology results in discussion section?
You can. For example, instead of giving a full details about the methodology, you can say that this description of this procedure is discussed elsewhere. You cite that paper. Cite that paper. If the description is same, you have followed exactly the same standard procedure followed in different paper. You need not repeat it. You can say that the procedure adapted from elsewhere. Mention it. That's all. But if your variables are different, you have modified the process, then you cannot say. If you have followed exactly the data presented or detail presented in the previous paper, and you have followed the same procedure without violating that, you can say, we adopted the procedure elsewhere, presented elsewhere. Okay.
So once revised document submitted to the journal, again the paper will go to the
Same reviewer.
reviewer, sir, and other reviewers.
Same reviewer. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So, for English because publication in English is quite difficult.
I do not know, madam, because Anna University has recommended few journals for especially this English as well as management. They have identified already. I think this list is also available in the website. See,
What I have interacted with English faculty, they tell that even the reviewing time is too huge. And getting a paper published in English because the reviewers are in the foreign countries. So it is very difficult for them. That is what they have represented.
yeah, that's a practical difficulty for management as well as English, madam. The two, management also similar problem is there. But recently, Anna University has identified some good journal. Yeah.
Also, can you give some suggestion on like how to handle the long review time of the ACI? As a research scholar, they find
Madam, nowadays, if you submit your paper in Q1 and Q2 journal, time given for review is 15 days. That's all. No, at the end of the 15 days, the reviewer will get a mail immediately. Within 3 days, if I am not submitting another review reminder, again with the second review, they will stop. That's all. They will take a decision with the first one reviewer. So therefore, nowadays, very quick decisions are made with respect to Q1 and Q2 journal.
Okay,
Yeah.
but some representation from our faculty from KCG, because I'll be interacting with them regarding the publication. So one reason they tell us it is under review for 1 year, 1.5 years, like that.
Nowadays, in all Q1, Q2 journal, it's only, today also I got one which I submitted 1 week back. It's within 7 days. That's all. Because it's a competition among the journal. Who publishes fast, they will be get a recognition and also citation. So that is also very important.
Sir, and how important it is for open access funding? So there are few of them had.
Open access, you will have more citations. You will have more citation. Your citation will be improved. But the thing is, huge payment you have to pay. If you are ready to pay, you can go for open access, and audience will be wider. Here in the subscription, it is limited.
But some universities are giving the funding for open access.
Yeah. Mostly, I know one collaborator where if you put his name, he will publish in open access because he will pay. He will pay from his university because the universities are now ready to pay open access fee also. Yes.
Specifically the foreign universities.
Foreign universities.
So one question is there in the online.
Okay. Some say that many authors from different institutions make their paper accepted easier than a few authors. Comment on this. If really the research involves multiple authors, then it is good. That means in different institutions take part actively in the research activity. But without no involvement, if the authorship is given, that is something wrong in one aspect. Another aspect, when you get involved with multiple people, especially the nature and all, if you look at the author, number of authors, it would be 20, 30, 40. That means each author will contribute. Each author's knowledge is reinforced in the paper. As a result, if you want to publish very high impact factor journal, we should have a collaborative one. We should have a collaborative one. One more question. How do you ensure clarity, consciousness in scientific thinking? Scientific clarity will come when you have more knowledge in the particular domain. That means literature review reading is essential. Literature reading is essential to get the more clarity. That's the answer.
So thank you so much, sir. Thanks to the.
I appreciate this audience because one good thing about this audience, after meal session, it is very boring. Sleeping faces cute. That's why I'm very, very happy.
Thank you for that appreciation.
It's not like such a bad, so the everybody is actually. Okay.
Sir, please accept. That is good. So we would like to present a memento to you. Let us give a huge round of applause to sir for making us awake after the lunch. So tea, coffee is there. Okay, only tea or coffee. Sorry. And tomorrow we have one session by faculty from IIITDM regarding the conversion of ideas from lab to market. Don't miss it. That's in the morning session. And afternoon again we'll have the HOD of ECE from IIITDM. So we'll be telling